Greetings, I'm Rob Chappers, and welcome to Andertons, where you'll find Lee. Like a Lee automaton. And I'm Rob Chapman.
And today we're going to talk to you about some more cool amplifiers
Bruno!
From our friends at Vox. Now, the story behind these is about a month ago, Rob and I shot a video on a little Vox 18-watt combo called the TB35. And it was a special offer at Andertons, and it sounded amazing, and it was a killer price, and we were both really blown away by how cool it sounded. And I went back to Vox and said, you know, there's like they have a big the TB18 has a bigger brother called the TB35. And I went, yeah, we got some of those. I said, do you want to do a deal on those as well to sort of get them through the same kind of deal? And they said, yeah. So we bought a bunch of the 35C1s, which is this one, the 1x12, a bunch of the 35C2s, which is a little off camera, but you'll see a sweep over of that at some point, which is the 212. They are currently being sold off at half the suggested retail price in the UK.
Ooh. That's 50%.
That's 50%.
Wow.
50 cent, as I say. That's 50 cent off the price. And so, quick rundown on the spec. The Tony Bruno. Who is Tony Bruno?
I've no idea, Lee. Tell me who Tony Bruno is.
He's not the Bruno character that Baron Sacha Cohen played. No, he is an American boutique amp designer who has worked on his own amps in the past and for Vox in the past, but basically is kind of known for probably a more American sounding tone than is traditionally associated with Vox. So what they did was they took the basic AC15 and the AC30 designs and they gave them to Tony and said, well, feel free to tweak these up and sort of make an amp that you like the sound of, and so became the TB18 and the TB35. So this has a complement of 3 AX7s in the 12 AX7s in the preamp, a couple of tubes to do a tube-driven spring reverb tank in here. It's got a lovely reverb on it. And 4 6v6 tubes in the power section, generating an ample 35 watts. Uses a Celestion G1265 speaker, I think, if my memory serves me correctly.
Chapman got all the specs, haven't you?
Yeah, and has some cool kind of buttons on it. Now, these are single channel amplifiers, so we'll do a nice pan over the top whilst I'm talking, hopefully, and you'll see that it's got a master volume, treble, middle and bass, and a volume control and a reverb control. But there are some switches that are kind of cool. The first one is the master volume has a true bypass switch. So if you want it to work like an old-fashioned Vox, where essentially you just crank it as loud as it goes to get drive, you can do that. You just turn the master volume off and off you go. If you leave the master volume switched on, which is how we're using them, you can use the separate volume control as like a gain control. It has a bass boost on there to give you a little bit more oomph, which is nice to have at lower volumes, but you'll probably end up switching off at higher volumes. And my favourite button, it has a macho switch. I wanna be so macho! I wanna be so macho! I wanna be big and strong, something like a moan! Anyway. So it has a macho button, and the macho button is kind of like a mid-gainy boost that you can foot switch in with this here fine and dandy Vox button foot switch that you get with it. So let's give you some tones. I'm playing through the 112. Chappers is playing through the 212. I have a Strat. Chappers has some newfangled design I've never seen.
A Les Paul.
I've got the volume cranked a little bit here, so it's probably just starting to break up. Maybe I'll take the volume down a little. I also have the bass boost in. If I back the volume down, I'll clean it up. If I put the macho button in, you get... And if I use it with a drive pedal, which is kind of what I've got down on the floor here, my love pedal E6, I can make it, you know, heavier sounding. And you can use the macho pedal as well as the drive pedal for maximum gain. Now we've set Rob up with a kind of a higher gain sound, Les Paul obviously, and a Wampler SLO pedal.
It's worth saying we did experiment with lots of different kinds of behind the scenes that you're not going to get to see. There was at least an hour of us playing with different kinds of pedals because we like to research and get the right tones.
We do.
And we tried a Rat, discarded that.
Didn't work.
We tried the Spark, which sounded great.
We might still use the Spark as just a top boost.
Yeah. So, yes, we discarded the Rat. We've got the Spark still, and at the moment, our favourite is the Wampler Slow Distortion.
Interestingly, the lower the gain setting we used on the Slow Distortion, the better, the smoother it kind of sounded. But anyway, let's have a little listen of some clean tones and
we'll start with the coil tapped Les Paul for you. What we've done is Captain Lee now controls the universe. You're inside the universe and he will move wherever he chooses and sees fit. Give us an overview of the amplifier while I play and you tweak tonnage.
Okay.
Currently I'm coil tapped.
So I thought we'd kind of do this because then you guys can see kind of some of the tonal variants that are available from this here amplifier. So there's all the controls that I talked about earlier on. And what we're going to do first of all is show you with the master volume switched in how you can kind of just crank this a little bit just to get some sort of slightly dirty sound. So we'll start with a really nice clean sound while I just play with some tone. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is start to sort of crank the volume a bit. So if Rob goes over to a buckered sound, and you'll just see kind of what happens, and we'll do two things. We might have to tell Stick to keep an eye on the levels here, because I'm also going to at some point switch off the master volume and just show you what happens when you just crank this bad boy, and that's probably where we might use the Spark drive pedal too. So a little bit of kind of like halfway up, and if you can also do, which you can see I'm plugged into the low input here, which means it's basically an attenuated input, which gives us a bit more headroom. If we don't want that headroom, we can of course go in the high input and that'll drive a bit more. And finally, what we're going to do now is switch off the master volume section. So this is going very vintage and just driving the amp with no master volume section in it. So it's a switch over here. So we've Sticks adjusted the level so it can cope with the massive amount of volume coming out of here. I've taken off the bass boost, rolled off the bass end as well, and as you can see we're just gunning it here, Maximuno.
So, Captain, this is what we can do with the slow distortion from Wampler, a Les Paul from Gibson, the various switchings, and a Vaux Bruno. I went silent on the X. Did you see
I heard. So, what you'll see again, we're only using the slow distortion here. We're just using the crunch mode, and we're only using the regular side of the pedal. We're not using the boost side. And it sounds a little bit like this.
Well, we can change that all sorts of different ways, using this and using that and using this. First thing I do is I bring it to the bridge and give it everything it's... It's not bad, is it? Let's pull this switch. What does that do, Lee?
That will only work if you're on both humbucker mode and in the central position, and then it will reverse the phase on the neck pickup and make you sound... say that's the Peter Green setting, and you probably sound more like Peter Green without the drive pedal.
Yeah.
So turn that off, and maybe the Macho, or maybe a bit of Spark. Who knows?
Macho first.
What is super easy to show you here is actually what Peter Green would have sounded like had his guitar not been wired, you know, unusually, by just popping that back in. So this is how a Les Paul would normally sound in the middle. But he actually sounded like this. Peter Green typically use?
I can't stop playing.
I think it actually sounds quite a lot like it.
He used to use all sorts of amplifiers. I don't know actually. I know a guy who does know called Dusty Miller, but I have no idea.
Oh well.
He's the Les Paul.
So
let's put the Spark in though with the Peter Green sound. I'm interested to see what the Spark sounds like.
So
with
the Spark,
the Vaux.
Again, I've not done much to. So as you can see, we've set it to fat boost mode, but with actually the gain and the level turned down quite a lot, and the treble backed off a bit. So.
Pretty damn convincing Smashing Pumpkins type growly Queens of the Stone Age type tone.
It's dirty. I saw Queens of the Stone Age on Jules Holland last night.
Ah.
Yes, and they were nothing like as heavy as I sort of thought they might be.
Well, that's because they were on Jules Holland and they probably got tamed down.
Can I put this camera back?
You can put the camera back now.
Thank you. Okay, so quick run through then of tones. I'm only using the Vox Macho pedal and the Love Pedal Eternity E6, which kind of seems to work pretty well. And an American...
And a Stone Plectrum.
A Stone Plectrum and an American special Stratocaster HSS, which is US made with jumbo frets, an atomic humbucker. And it's for the people. That's your line, Rob. For the people, by the people.
It actually is my line, yeah. But that's fine. They can
Naughty
use my line.
Fender.
They can use my line.
So we've got some nice kind of clean tones, as you'd expect. I want more reverb. I'm going to have more reverb. Same knobs and buttons on the top of the 112 as there is on the 212. I think if you were blindfolded, you could be forgiven for thinking that this probably was just a Fender amp, but it's very Fendery in its roots, you know. I like that tone. The Macho button on its own does this. And the E6 button on its own does this. And both together, they do this. Reminds me a little bit of this, if I can remember it now. What's the first line to that? Or something like that. Was Tina Turner in that video?
Yes. How does she dance, Lee?
Captain Lee, why don't you tell us and the wonderful audience on YouTube how much these amplifiers cost?
Oh. Well, the list price in the UK, I don't know what it was in the States, but the list price in the UK was £1,000 for this one and £1,200 for that one.
Wow.
So it's kind of ballpark the same sort of money as the Blueback speakered sort of regular AC30 1x12 and 2x12. But anyway, these aren't that price anymore. We have about 10 or 15 of each to sell, and this one's going to be $4.99 and this one's going to be $5.99, unless between the time that I've shot this video and the time that you're watching this video I've changed my mind, in which case they could be anything. But at the moment they're $4.99 and $5.99. $4.99, $5.99.
$5.99!
$5.99 50 cents. Yeah, they're cool. They work on European mains voltage, so wherever you live in Europa, you could buy one of these and we would ship it to you, and it would sound just like you've heard it in this wonderful video.
And essentially you get that classic Vox non-master type sound, but you can master it up and get some dirty filth from it as well.
It's a vintage man's amp, this one, isn't it?
It is.
It's the kind of, you know, if you're in a sort of a blues band or an indie band or anything where you like that sort of sound of the 60s, where it's a raw, natural drive as opposed to a heavily saturated.
Also loves a pedal up the front, doesn't it? So I mean,
loves a pedal.
If you've got a nice arrangement of lovely pedals and you want to have a nice amplifier to go with those lovely pedals.
And I like this actually. The actual cabinetry on the 35 is nicer than on the 18.
They do look mint, as we say in
You've
English.
got the two handles on top, which makes it easy to carry.
Because you can share it with a friend.
Yeah, you've got the white sort of beveling around the inside of the fascia here. You've got nice kind of. It's nice, to be honest with you. It's got the silver logo as opposed to a gold Vox logo. There's not much else to really tell you about these, is there? I've been the captain.
I've been Chappers.
And we're going for a nap.
Bye.
Bye.